Mississippi, July 1835. In the river town of Vicksburg, 5 men were dragged out by a mob and hanged in the streets. Across the surrounding plantation districts, the violence was worse. Dozens of enslaved people and poor white men were rounded up, whipped, and executed. The men leading these lynch mobs claimed they were preventing an apocalypse. They believed they had uncovered a coordinated conspiracy to incite a massive slave rebellion on Christmas Day, a plot designed to slaughter white enslavers across the South and seize control of New Orleans. According to the rumors, the mastermind behind this impending slaughter was a man named John A. Murrell, who supposedly commanded an invisible, region-wide criminal syndicate known as the Mystic Clan. To the ruling class of the Deep South, this extreme violence felt like a rational defense of their society, but they were slaughtering innocent people over a phantom threat. There was no Christmas Day rebellion. The Mystic Clan did not exist. The real John Murrell was a petty horse thief and counterfeiter who was, at that very moment, rotting in a Tennessee state penitentiary, serving a 10-year sentence for stealing a single enslaved man. The entire conspiracy was fabricated by a con man named Virgil Stewart. He wrote a sensationalized pulp pamphlet under a fake name, inventing the Mystic Clan simply to sell books and make a quick fortune. So how does a cheap lie printed in a dime store pamphlet trigger a summer of mass murder? To understand why the South tore itself apart, we have to look past the hoax itself and examine the terrifying, unstable reality of the American economy in 1835. In the age of Jackson, the Old Southwest, places like Mississippi and Arkansas, was an aggressive, fast-moving capitalist frontier. Settlers and fortune hunters were flooding down the Mississippi River, chasing the promise of boundless wealth. This chart illustrates the flush times.
Land and cotton investments hit a vertical spike in a wave of speculation, built entirely on dizzying, unsustainable debt. Because everything was bought on credit, fortunes were made and lost overnight. They were sitting on a financial bubble. At the same time, this booming economy attracted thousands of transient workers, riverboat gamblers, and speculators. These outsiders flooded the frontier, threatening the rigid social order the plantation owners were desperately trying to build. The result was a society totally obsessed with generating wealth, yet deeply paranoid about the fragile foundations holding it all up. Slavery in the specific frontier space treated human beings as high-value, liquid capital, assets that could be bought, sold, and traded to cover mounting debts. This is where the real John Murrell comes back in. He operated out in the wilderness, along remote stretches of trading routes like the Natchez Trace. His primary grift was a horrifying inversion of the Underground Railroad. Murrell would lure enslaved people away from plantations with the false promise of helping them escape. Then he would turn around and sell them back into slavery, sometimes repeating the cycle with the same person multiple times for pure profit. Murrell was a symptom of the market itself, ruthlessly treating human lives as commodities, exactly like the planters did. By 1835, Southern planters were already on edge. The Nat Turner Rebellion in Virginia 4 years earlier had proved that enslaved people would fight back, and the growing influence of Northern abolitionists only added to their panic. Their ultimate nightmare was a unified lower class. They were terrified that poor white outsiders, like those transient riverboat gamblers, would team up with the oppressed enslaved population to violently overthrow the enslavers. Virgil Stewart's pamphlet acted as a match in this powder magazine. His fictional story explicitly confirmed the planters' exact nightmare scenario, a massive, interracial conspiracy to destroy them. Extreme wealth built on brutal human exploitation naturally breeds extreme guilt and fear. The environment was so highly combustible that a single targeted lie easily ignited mass hysteria. Which brings us back to the hanging ropes of July 1835. Armed with the context of the flush times, those lynch mobs take on a different meaning. They were violently imposing class order on a chaotic capitalist frontier. The violence served a dual purpose. The gamblers were lynched because they represented economic instability and vice, and the enslaved people were murdered to send a terrifying message, reasserting total dominance over the labor force. The justice meted out that summer was actually a desperate, bloody purge. The ruling class was trying to protect their speculative, slave-driven capitalist system from its own inherent instability. Meanwhile, the supposed architect of all this chaos met a remarkably quiet end. John Merle served out his sentence in a Nashville penitentiary, dying as a broken blacksmith from tuberculosis in 1844. But the myth of the great Western land pirate completely outlived the man. Merle's exaggerated crimes and his fictional mystic clan became a permanent fixture in Southern folklore. The legend survived for decades, eventually making its way into iconic American literature when writers like Mark Twain wrote about Merle's hidden treasures in The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. The Merle excitement of 1835 reveals that when capitalism and slavery merge into a system of extreme exploitation, they produce more than just immense wealth. They produce a psychological terror so deep that a society will tear itself apart over a ghost story.